You are not going to read it? I mean, I'll look through it. So, I'm pretty sure just this is kind of just talking about how Overwatch was before. I really don't, because I'm pretty sure I don't have to really read much of this. This just talks about the big changes that happened to Overwatch throughout its history. Alright. 3 large format changes to Overwatch, and the first happened shortly after the game, which was hero limits. Yeah, makes sense. But everybody that's ever fucking played original Overwatch, when there was no hero limits, knows that this is the best change they fucking made. There's no debate about this. There's not. What the hell happened to my fucking... Wait, I need a good song for this. Put that up. Okay. There's no debate. Nobody fucking misses no hero limit Overwatch. Okay? I do. Stop lying. Right, and then they just talk about, like, why it was necessary. Makes sense. If someone would play Tracer, but you were already Tracer. I'm already Tracer. There is no way they just fucking dropped that mid-article.
Feels strong man nah man 6 Reinhardt's against 6 Bastions.
I think maybe this feature system was limiting match variety as well as player freedom and creativity in order to create a more balanced, consistent, competitive experience. Remember this point because we'll touch on it a few more times in this piece. I think the hero limit rule was a great decision and we would make it again. I agree. I agree. Second large change to the game's format was the move from open queue to role queue, which limited team compositions to 2 heroes from each role. Yeah, I mean, I think, again... I think most people would probably say this was a good thing. I mean, you can't have goats anymore, which fucking sucks. Because goats is the best fucking meta ever. Remember when Fissure leaked this when he was leaving Overwatch League, and then he rejoined, and then they fined him for when he leaked it before he left? That was a fucking really good one. What is this? Go one, Gravity. Go one. Anyways. Yeah, I think this one's a little more controversial, but not really. Like, I would say 2-2-2 is fine. I mean, it did get rid of some creative comps. Like Ball, 3 DPS dive. Goats, obviously. This role imbalance frequently led to wildly imbalanced matches between teams. The game played better when heroes from all 3 roles were selected. The disparity caused social issues as player would try to pressure others into playing tank or support roles even if they didn't want to. It made balancing heroes more difficult since we couldn't balance around a certain role ratio for each team, and it even made introducing new heroes more difficult since any new hero kit had to take into consideration hundreds of different team compositions and abilities that could overlap with it. Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense. The switch to the role queue system did have some downsides, the largest of which was much longer queue times. Not for tanks in Overwatch 1. In Overwatch 2, I'm over here with fucking 20 million hour queues, but for a long time, I had the quickest queue times in Overwatch 1. So that was cool. Prior to role queue, yeah, just need to find 12 players, but now there's a lot more that it has to take into account. I mean, this is just kind of like a recap of Overwatch history. I think the real meat and potatoes starts here. The third major format change. 6v6 to 5v5. Chills. I'm gonna drink some water for this one. Remember, just as a friendly reminder, I asked this question over 2 years ago, and it's finally getting answered now. Just a little heads up. When we launched Overwatch 2, we talked about the greater individual agency that players could have in 5v5, which is a team sport. And it requires players to rely on each other to be successful. This was even more the case previously, and the game could be frustrating if your team was out of sync.
The real meat and potatoes is in the summary.
Many times, fights in 66 couldn't resolve until ultimate abilities came online. Correct that until ultimate combos could be executed to break through 2 tanks worth of mitigation supported by high uncontested healing output. The world of 6v6 could have really high highs, but really low lows. I get it. This is an opinion piece in a way. This is an opinion piece. But like, to me, it sounds like they're saying the lows of 6v6 were lower than the highs of 6v6. That's not what they said. I mean, that's definitely implied. That's definitely implied. Are you like? There's no. They're not just spelling really for highs and then going really for the lows. That's obviously intentional here. They're literally stretching it more here, which I don't even think is true. I think the biggest problem, which I don't know if they touch on this, is that they didn't fucking update the game for 2.5 years when Double Shield was meta. I digress. One of the design goals of 5.5 was to try to raise that floor, even though it was at the expense of some of those high moments. Overwatch 2 also greater emphasis on FPS gameplay. There's less damage mitigation in CC. Players get to shoot at enemies more. Crowd control can take players out of the game for a second. Yep. Especially when they're chained back to back. A 5-second Sombra hack, May Freeze, Brig Bash, Ana Sleep, Orisa Halt, Sigma Rock. Classic. The real life mental health was another story. Damage heroes often complain that the role was the least impactful relative to the strength of super powerful tank synergies and support heroes undoing their playmaking. Okay. Support heroes had to focus almost exclusively on healing since there were bigger team health pools and more incoming damage on the field. Sure. Tank synergy wasn't always fun. It slowed the game down, stabilized it, but sometimes it absolutely ground it to a halt. People point to the double shield meta as an example of this. It wasn't just about double shield though. The ability to stack a very defensive heavy lineup, especially in game modes that required a team to push through a small choke, caused a lot of matches to feel like there was no progress at all. Feels like there's more room to move around a map without the need to earn every inch of it. In 5v5, fights are often less focused on moving around in a death ball formation. Okay. And there's more room to take angles, flank, and duel other players. I don't know. I mean, sure. While 6-6 can have high moments, it's also hard to follow. Tracking down other players is easier than 11. Yeah. One of the biggest benefits of 5v5 is dramatically reduced queue times. Let's explore that. Okay, my queue times are definitely, like, not lowered. I'll just say it. They can say it reduced queue times for players in all roles. Not me. Okay? Not me. I'll tell you what. Definitely not me. Am I a prophet or something? Lexible, you are not the main character.
Hey, Super, I went to my boss today and told him I need a mental reset.
You are
Sorry,
not.
boss. I'm not quiet quitting. I swear I still am a worker and still love working. Thank you, boss, for hopefully understanding.
Yeah.
He told me to fuck off.
Biggest factor driving the difference between Overwatch and Overwatch 2 queue times is the ratio of players queuing for each role. We hear players speculate that long queue times are a result of not enough players playing Overwatch. That isn't the case. But instead that relative to the other roles, players generally queue tank less, leading to longer wait times for all while we wait for a tank to free up to find a proper match. Okay. The sharp drop-off in queue times in October 22 is what Overwatch 2, along with 5v5, shipped. The queue times of all heroes dropped and are now much shorter than they were in the 6v6 world. This is almost all because the game required one less tank in a match. If you look at the current queue times, you can see that there's still a lack of tanks compared to other roles. Just flipping the switch and returning to 6v6 would likely cause a return to previous queue times or worse. Okay. But how do you fix that?
Let's explore how DPS players are the real problem. Where dude MFS asking for more tanks on each team yet never play tanks themselves.
I mean, people are going to play what they want to play. You can't really fix that. I feel like. Where's my music? Hello? Okay, never mind.
Sounds to me like the solution to our problems is DPS players growing some balls and learning tank to be
Yeah, but
honest.
that's never gonna happen, man.
6v6 the buff to help wrecking ball smile.
You can't really incentivize people to play other roles. Well, they did in Overwatch 1. Why did they ever get rid of the priority queue tickets?
No balance changes.
What's that about? Did they ever talk about that? They talk about that? Oh, okay. Pass. Oh, that was in the historical context. We introduced a priority pass system that gave players who played low demand roles tank a shorter queue when they switched to damage. This had a positive effect for several weeks, but its influence quickly faded. We also introduced systems to reward players for playing tank, eventually giving them a loot box and a bunch of XP for queuing that role. None of these were able to put a dent in the demand for playing DPS. Damage queue times drifted a bit lower over time. Much of this was due to the introduction of open queue competitive, and the permanent loss of damaged players unwilling to wait that long for a match. The game started its life with 6 players on each team. I discussed why we moved away from 6v6, but that doesn't mean it's without any merit. There are moments in madness that could happen with 12 players in a match that didn't just quite coalesce when there was 10. It was almost too much to keep track of. Correction, it was too much to keep track of at time. Why do they, this is the second time they've done that. Like, actually, correct that. Correction, it was too much to keep track of at times, but that was part of the charm. There are big moments in Overwatch 2, but they don't quite have that same chaotic, over-the-top feeling to them. Part of that chaos allowed players to feel less pressure in a match. There was an extra player to take up a bit of the slack for someone that was performing poorly. Since that player was a tank, they had quite a bit of impact. There were a lot more hit points and defensive capabilities to burn through, which had a stabilizing effect on gameplay. Teams would fold a bit slower than they do now.
Smart. Congrats. The Cammy cosplay's jar is the heaviest one so far.
That's great, man.
Good
Thanks
work,
for sharing.
King.
We never saw the issues of tank synergy earlier, but having 2 of them allowed one to focus on protecting their backline while the other held the ground or push into the enemy team. The tank role had a lot of depth and understanding how to work with the other tank on the team. This part of the mystery curve took a long time to learn, and for the small group of people devoted to it, that was part of its allure. We mentioned the difficulty of balancing tanks for 6v6 earlier, but the past year and a half has shown us that there are issues with balancing tanks for 5v5 as well. Some would argue more issues with balancing tanks for 5v5. Some would argue more. Oh, I meant mastery curve, sorry. Did I say mystery? Oopsie. This part of the mastery curve. For much of Overwatch 2, tanks have been fairly balanced. But when one of them becomes a powerful outlier like Malga, that can be felt strongly in the world of one tank.
Oh boy, if 6v6 comes out, I cannot wait
for
Malga's Aya comp.
I think tanks, when the Overwatch 2 came out, tanks were broken for the first few seasons, then tanks were shit, and then tanks got strong again. I don't think they were ever, like, balanced. But when one of them becomes a powerful outlier like Malga that can be felt strongly in the world of one tank, yeah, I mean, it's just like, I mean, I mentioned this before, but I think, like, the biggest problem is, like, is constantly changing and adding, like, passives to the game.
Never ask women their weight, never ask a man his height, and
you know,
never ask supertf where he was on July 13th,
shut up, bitch.
2024. You know, maybe, instead of removing 2 entire tanks, they could have not forced the tank roles to play the same coma-inducing comps for almost 3 years. Oricha, sick. Ball, sick. Fundamentally, there will be the definitively most useful dive, brawl, and poke, sig,
I mean,
tanks.
I don't know.
So how long till we say it's not a format problem and these guys not knowing what the fuck to do with balance?
It's hard because, like, I mean, again, I think a big problem was like they just didn't really update the game in Overwatch 1 for years because they were working on Overwatch 2 and PvE, which just got scrapped, but then they switched to 5v5, so it's like... And then there was like radio silence for a long time. I don't know. But like, what was I saying? Oh yeah, like the passives, like constantly changing role passives around just fucking feels like band-aiding a temporary solution to like a permanent problem. Like they try a passive, if it's too strong or too weak, they change it, and then it's like, I don't know. It's really, really weird. Music, where?
By update, do you mean adding more heroes or patches? Because they definitely did a bunch of balance patches even in late
I mean both.
OW1.
Unless I'm completely misremembering, they did not update Overwatch 1 that much. Towards the, I mean, compared to Overwatch 2 at least, it was not getting that many balance patches. Balance patch every 2 to 3 months. Overwatch 2 has had more updates than Overwatch 1's entire life. I mean, that sounds... I mean, yeah. Okay, what's next? I think I put more effort into this essay than any I wrote in college. Nice, man. The challenges mentioned previously, we are focused on making 5v5 the best experience that it can be. However, because we operate as a service to our players, we always remain open-minded to reevaluating our decisions based on your actions and feedback to give you the best game experience we can. Rather than introduce a disruptive permanent change to the game, we prefer to... like they did before. Just kidding, kind of. We prefer to explore the space further and make changes based on that exploration. With that said, we're looking at running a series of events to try out different core team composition formats in Overwatch 2. The community has just once or twice suggested a test. Why not put various forms of 6v6 in the game in order to gauge the results? We agree. And based on your feedback, we're exploring how we can test different forms of 6v6 in the game to gauge the results. This is going to take some time, however, for reasons that may not be readily apparent. The first and honestly largest reason is the need to do this in a way that allows the game to have optimized technical performance. I'm referring to frame rate and memory constraints with 12 players in a match? What? There have been quite a few upgrades and additions to Overwatch 2 that have an impact on the performance of the game. Allied outlines and enabling healer vision by default, the addition of more technically demanding hero kits, as well as visual updates to UI, heroes, and maps, and it's exciting these upgrades can have a significant impact for our players, causing the game to underperform on older systems. Wait, so the engine's worse? More demanding? Yeah?
Smart.
That's what I mean by worse.
1 year.
They have to take into account the Switch port? Okay, but who the fuck is playing Overwatch on the Switch?
It's crazy they need to optimize the game for 6v6 just for Starforge PCs.
You are a little slow? No, I'm not a little slow, okay? I read this exactly here. They added new features to the Overwatch 2 engine, but as a result, they can't actively run 6v6 because some people with older PCs are going to struggle because of the extra additions, because it's more demanding.
6v6 doesn't work and throw it in the garbage forever.
You are a lot slow?
Easy
Banned for a week.
To a better Overwatch.
Banned for a week.
Remove all passive except the self-healing outside of combat. Bring 6v6 back. Have multiple tests to see what needs balancing. DPS Doomfist back and 2 CP. Just kidding.
Easy solution. Lists 7 million different things they have to do. Easy. Okay. Another issue, and one that still gives me anxiety about opening this Pandora's box, is what to do with queue times if enough players prefer 6v6 to keep some form of it around. The team was not able to solve this issue previously. While we have some ideas now, there's no guarantee that they will work.
What he doesn't mention here is the Switch. The updated OW2 engine has more particle effects and shit. The devs would probably leave the Switch behind, but good luck selling that to
Bro, who gives a fuck about the Switch? That is some dog shit old hardware that should have been fucking thrown in the trash years ago. They're coming out with the Switch 2 soon anyways. Probably, what, 3 dozen people play on the Switch? There's no way they're gonna have to fucking cater to the Switch audience. Let's just be real here.
I don't need Overwatch 2 6v6 to win. I just need 5v5 to lose.
When the Switch 2 comes out, they can work on that. Is there a world where people are willing to live with long queue times to play this format? Maybe, but that's a pretty risky move to make.
I think
we also have
99
tens of
would be
millions
good
of new
balance.
players that have only played 5v5. You want to be openly mindful not to frustrate those who like the game as it is today. The outcome of these tests would give us lots of valuable information to consider moving forward. The outcome of these tests would give us lots of valuable information to consider moving forward. We'd run the test for a few weeks and gauge interest from the community. Then we measure the impact it had on the other experiences in Overwatch 2, like 5v5, arcade, etc. Take lessons from this playtest to see what we can learn about the mode within the current game ecosystem and for the future of Overwatch. I'm going to jump on a soapbox for a moment. What does that mean? Jump on a soapbox meaning express strong opinion. Okay, yeah. Or make a speech about a particular. So it's literally the fucking free speech emote. Okay, literally. When you look at the changes to Overwatch since its inception, it's clear that many of those... Okay, hold on. This is a hot take. Let me fucking lock in for this. It's clear that many of those have reduced some of the variety within an Overwatch match. We get feedback from players that Overwatch can feel the same from game to game. While much of this gets attributed to 5v5, we feel that there is more at play here. Besides running experiments with 6v6, we'd like to run some that re-examine the ways that we tried solving previous problems, specifically with the goal of bringing some of the freedom back to an Overwatch match without the severity of issues that accompanied it. For instance, we think there could be other ways of putting a team together that aren't quite as rigid as a set composition, but not as loose as open queue. Huh? We'll be running at least one quick play hacked based on this idea in Season 13. There are some gotchas to this direction, but after reading 400 pages of this blog, hope you're all able to see that there are trade-offs to many of the decisions that go into this game and into any game, really. So is he saying that he, like, almost agrees in a way that he wants to... Maybe not agrees, but he does want to do something to shake up and spice the game up a bit? Interesting. 7v7. Your feedback has driven both our inspiration and commitment to testing new ideas in game. We want to be super thoughtful about how we implement new ideas into the live game because there are millions of players who jump into Overwatch each season. We want anything to be put into the game to benefit the community as a whole. This blog, or thesis rather, is the start of this conversation. This isn't the last time we're going to be getting to 5v5 or 6v6, and we can't wait to share more about our plans in the future. In closing, we appreciate you so much, and we love seeing your passion and dedication to the game, Team 4, and the Overwatch community. The team hears you, we see you, and we're incredibly thankful to be on this ride with all of you. Can't wait to share more in the upcoming months, and let's make a great game together.